The Ukrainian president has called for more military support as the war is intensifying. President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, has once again expressed his support for Ukraine. Live from Ukraine right now, we are joined by our SABC News correspondent, Megumi, who is joining us live from Ukraine. Good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. It has been an ongoing conversation, an ongoing debate around the aid that Ukraine is requiring. The U.S. spending over $114 million in aid so far, and the debate is whether the U.S. will be able to make more funds available to Ukraine. What is Vladimir Zelensky saying about the need for this urgent aid?
Well, first of all, we saw a change in tone by U.S. President Joe Biden in terms of the confidence that he expressed on Tuesday that Congress will be able to soon approve bills that will include additional funds for Ukraine. But yesterday he changed his tone and admitted that he was worried because of the political turmoil unfolding in Washington. As we know, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy was ousted, and they are still trying to look for a replacement. And among the candidates, there are people who are in support of additional aid for Ukraine, but there are hardliners who are not in support of additional aid for Ukraine, that they are strongly opposed to it. So there is a kind of limbo that the United States is currently going through, and because of that, there is a sort of freezing of this conversation of whether or not there will be continued U.S. aid for Ukraine. And the Pentagon has warned that funds are running out, that they have funds to help Ukraine in the immediate term, but not in the long term. But President Zelensky has remained confident that this doesn't fundamentally change the attitude of a U.S. support for Ukraine. He has seen bipartisan support. I mean, he was just in Washington right after the United Nations General Assembly, and he has seen, he said, bipartisan support from both Republicans and Democrats for Ukraine. So he seems confident that U.S. aid will continue, but he has emphasized strongly the need for air defense systems as the winter months approach, and Russia is expected to target Ukraine's energy grid again.
Yeah. Is there concern at all, even though there is this bipartisan support from Congress, that the speaker who could be elected in the next couple of days perhaps might be a speaker who is not keen on having more funds flowing to Ukraine?
Well, that's right. There are some candidates who are in support of additional funding, but there are hardliners like Jim Jordan who have vocally opposed continued aid for Ukraine. There are many hardliners among the Republican Party that thinks that military aid should be cut off. And this is exactly why this political turmoil has unfolded in the first place, when Kevin McCarthy did soften his tone. He was someone in the past who did say that Ukraine shouldn't be getting a blank check, but he was the only Republican who was actually willing to meet Zelensky when Zelensky was in Washington recently to meet with President Joe Biden, and other Republicans didn't really give him the room to speak. But former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy met with him privately and softened his tone, and this has been one of the factors why this political turmoil has unfolded. So it is a risky business to voice ongoing support for Ukraine if you're part of the Republican Party, especially if because there are hardliners who are staunchly opposed. So that is the current situation right now in Washington.
And what about the European ministers, and also looking that the EU was looking at, well, they were proposing at least around a £500 million package in military assistance to Ukraine?
Well, that's right. There was the historic European foreign ministers, EU foreign ministers meeting just this week on Monday, where they actually approved under the existing European peace facility 5 billion euros worth of military aid, a new military aid package to be sent to Ukraine. So this is promising for Ukraine, that there is ongoing support. And there has been back-to-back meetings indeed since the United Nations General Assembly, and then Zelensky in Washington, and then NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg did visit Ukraine recently, along with UK Defense Secretary Grant Shapps, and then followed by this defense foreign ministers meeting where more aid was promised. So there is more aid along the way, and President Zelensky has just arrived in Grenada to take part in the European political community, where more than 40 the heads of states of more than 40 countries will be there to discuss ongoing support for Ukraine, including the importance of air defense systems. And also there will be special attention paid to the Black Sea region as it remains volatile because a Russian naval blockade continues around the Ukrainian port areas in the Black Sea. And Zelensky has also emphasized the need for food security and freedom of navigation in the Black Sea. So these are some of the things that will be discussed in the coming days.
Yeah, and just a final one, Megumi, do you get the sense at all that there is a military or war fatigue that is seeping in? And also, are there any signs at all of the two sides, this is now Ukraine and Russia, coming closer to a settlement?
There is absolutely no sign of Ukraine and Russia coming closer to a settlement. Ukraine largely remains adamant that their territory, they're a sovereign country, and the territories that they are trying to retake in this ongoing counteroffensive, which has entered its fourth month and almost entering its fifth. Ukrainian forces continue to try to retake territory both in the eastern and southern regions of Ukraine, and they have moved forward to try to also retake Crimea, which was annexed by Russia in 2014. But there is indeed a sense of fatigue as the war has almost reached its second year. There are a lot of soldiers who have died on the battlefield or maimed because this time round in the counteroffensive, Russia has laid many mines, land mines, along their front lines, along their defensive lines, and it has been a difficult counteroffensive for Ukrainian forces as we have seen them struggle to make significant gains on the battlefield. So there is, of course, a sense of fatigue, but there is no sense that Ukraine and Russia is ready for any kind of settlement.